I'm not the original Republican in Hidalgo County, but I've been around a long time, and we didn't have this when I started. So Adrian, thank you for doing this and all the wonderful work you've been doing for the Republican Party over the last few years. All the volunteers that helped put this together, really appreciate it. And Senator Middleton, thanks for coming down and speaking to the crowd tonight. We really enjoyed what you had to say, and we can't wait for the other speakers to come up and give us some words of wisdom. Really looking forward to it. But you heard that song play. It's probably not the kind of song you're going to hear at a political rally. But I asked to play it for a reason, because they asked me, is there a song you want to play? And I said, well, I never really thought about that. And then on Saturday morning, I was walking, and my wife always makes fun of me when I walk because I listen to country music. She doesn't think it's the kind of music you should walk to. She thinks you should walk to something like soul cycle or hip hop or something like that to get your heart going. But I listen to country, and on Saturday, I heard that song. Saturday night, I think I messaged Aaron, and I said, this is a great time for me to thank my wife for all the stuff she's had to put up with over the last 20 years. Since we started, 3 tours of duty with the Army. I went to Germany, then I went to Iraq, then I went to Afghanistan. And she's not going to understand this number, but we've been through 7 elections. That's a lot of elections. If you've been through one as a spouse or a candidate, you know how taxing it is on your mental and physical health and on your relationships. And this one, 2024, Chief Justice, will be our 7th. So I want to thank you for always being there. I think I get elected because of her. Now, right now in her head, she's saying, somebody please call the authorities. Aliens have abducted my husband and replaced him with someone who's kind, loving, and thoughtful. But thank you so much, and thank you everybody for being here. I do want to set some ground rules as a judge. Aaron and I talk about this almost every day. We can't talk about issues that may come before the court. This is election season, so I can't talk about specific candidates, can't endorse candidates. With issues like our courthouse, I can't tell you who I think is responsible and what we should do with them, because that might come before the court. I can't tell you what I think about boys and girls sports, because that could come before the court. And as a judge, the only thing I can do is remain loyal to the law. But what I can talk about is values. Values that we share with the 2 presidents that we're honoring today. Values like loyalty, duty, respect, service, courage. You know, Lincoln with courage and persistence. I like to use the word persistence, which is not really a value per se, but when you couple it with strong moral character and moral values, in the military we call it a force multiplier. So Lincoln lost several elections, but he didn't give up. Finally, he won the presidency, and he was the right man to be in that position to save our country. Several decades later, we get Reagan, who with his persistence and his courage wins the Cold War and dismantles the Soviet Union. I mean, these are the type of values that we all share in this room, the kind of values that I aspire to, and the kind of values that I hope I have. And I want to tell you the story about how I got here, because I think it has some meaning, and you'll get it in the end. The very first race that they asked me to run in 2000 was for county attorney. And after some reflection, I said, I'll do it. It was county attorney in Kennedy County. And then they said, yes, but will you do it as a Democrat? I wasn't even politically active, but for some reason, I couldn't say yes. I remember in 1984, my very first election that I voted in, I drove from San Antonio all the way to McAllen to vote for Ronald Reagan. I was not politically active, but something was telling me I cannot run as a Democrat. So I told my uncle, who was the county judge, I said, can't do it, I'll run with the NAR. So they were happy I said yes, but then they were sad that I was running as a Republican. Well, and there's a lot of sub-stories to these stories, but I gotta be quick because I know I only have 10 minutes, so I apologize in advance. But I won that election with 75% of the vote. And I won 2 more after that. Fast forward to 2012, I get recruited to run for the 13th Court of Appeals. And after a lot of reflection and prayer, I said, I'll do it. And then 2 weeks later, I get the call from Human Resource Command, and they said, congratulations, you won the lottery, you're going to Afghanistan. So I'd already paid the filing fee, I was on the ballot, and I thought, well, you know what, I'll be the nominee. No, at the filing deadline, nobody else filed. Well, I'm on my way to Afghanistan. There's some redistricting issues in Texas, so they pushed the deadline for all offices, and at the 11th hour, someone else filed. I'm away, 5,000 miles away. I lose that election with only 25% of the vote. I got whooped really bad. Well, I think that was part of the reason I got appointed to the 92nd District Court in Hidalgo County. And I remember Daryl Davila from the appointments office calling me and saying, hey, I got one more question before we make our decision. Will you run? And I had already had this conversation with my wife, with Ernie Aliceda, and a bunch of other people. It's like, I'm not gonna run. I mean, we're not gonna win in Hidalgo County, so I'm not gonna do it. But when he asked me that question, something intervened. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was God putting his hand on my shoulder, and I said yes. And then the next words out of Daryl's mouth were, congratulations, you got the appointment. So I promised I'd run, so I ran in Hidalgo County, and of course, we lost. Let's get to 2018. We thought it was the perfect storm to win the 13th Court of Appeals. There were 4 places up. We had Greg Perks and Ernie Aliceda, myself, and the patriot, true rock star, Clarissa Silva. We found at the 11th hour, right before the filing deadline, we called her, and without hesitation, she says, yes, I'll do it. Well, that year, Francis O'Rourke brought in a lot of money, and we still had straight ticket voting. So at the end of that election, we lost. And I was starting to feel like God was telling me that, hey, maybe this isn't for you, right? But then the person I lost to, and it was a real gut punch because I lost to a guy who was indicted for bribery related to his official duties on the bench. So I had to go to work the next day. Everyone knew he was indicted. Eventually he was convicted and went to prison, and the governor appointed me to that position. And there was no talk about running again, but I decided I would, because when I thought about maybe it wasn't my destiny to win an election on the 13th, what I really found was I think that God wanted someone who was courageous enough, who was willing to do it. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna run again. Again, I called Justice Silva. It was the 11th hour. No one had stepped up. And I actually asked her, is there a midterm judge who would think about running because they can run safe? And she didn't hesitate, and she says, I'll run again. It was probably the best decision she ever made, not just for herself, but for the people of this district, because she's one of the hardest working judges we have on the 13th Court of Appeals. But the biggest reason I think we won is because there have been patriots, warriors in this room, some not in this room, who came before us. And every time they run, it pushes the needle a little bit. And it gets more and more people involved in Republican politics. And so I want to ask, if you've ever run for office in Hidalgo County or had a district that was in Hidalgo County, I want you to raise your hand. Yeah, they deserve a really big round of applause. because they're the ones that got us where we are now today. And I'm going to mention my name, and I've actually been writing this down for several days. And Daniel, I didn't know you ran in this, so Daniel, you're one of them. Monica, Reuben, Myra, and y'all are going to remember their names. Elijah, Hilda, Doc, Jimmy, Marty, Ernie, Dan, Don Ali. Anyone remember Don Ali? Jane, Mindy, Ismail, Aaron, Doug, Tim, Eddie, Cassie. Cassie didn't run in our county, but she single-handedly turned Starr County from the bluest county in the country to competitive. So thank you, Cassie, for doing that. Janie, Adam, Minerva, Judy, Juan, Wesley, Dr. Flores, LJ, Oscar, Greg, Rose, Jennifer, and I don't know if y'all remember our district judge for the U.S. Southern District, Judge Hinojosa, once ran. I think he ran for Texas Senate. And so did Judge Micaela Alvarez. So those are the people who pushed the envelope and made our success. And of course, Aaron came later, and the rest is history. We have 4 people on the ballot this next cycle, and we're hoping to turn the 13th Court of Appeals into pure red. So I wanted to close with this, Galatians 6:9, and let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap. But the most important part, if we do not give up. We cannot give up. We need to keep moving forward. We can't win if we're not on the battlefield. Saul, David's brothers, the other men in the army on the battlefield, they all laughed at David when he said, "Send me." But he put his faith in God. And that's what we need to do. You join me in 2024. Put your faith in God, and anything is possible. One more little thing. Soon, we're going to have the candidate board up in Hidalgo County GOP. And we need to fill that candidate board from county judge all the way down to all of the JPs, the constables. We need people running for all of the positions. We had a great number last year, but we need a lot more. So I'm ready for 2024. Thank you, and God bless. God bless Texas.